Hello, class. Dr. Thompson here. I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you today talking about Death of a Salesman. Always been one of my favorite plays. Wonderful work by Arthur Miller. And I mentioned in the blackboard that what Miller was trying to do was tell the tragedy of the common man. Normally, when you think of Shakespearean tragedies or Greek tragedies, you think of kings and great people who rise to great heights and then have a downfall due to a fatal flaw, as you may remember from high school. Willy Loman has a fatal flaw as well. His wife says, and I have some quotes called up here because I always like to analyze literature, thinking about quotes, thinking about the words in the literature, this quote here from his wife. A small man can be just as exalted as a great man. That's very much what Miller was getting at in this play, that you don't have to rise to become a king. You don't have to become a president, like a Nixon or Clinton. You don't have to become a great man to be exhausted, to be worn down by your fatal flaw, by your weakness, by your insecurities, by your whatever that fatal flaw may be. So that's really what Miller was getting at here. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of these quotes, but here's a great one here, right? This is again Linda, his wife, talking. Linda seems to understand him better than anyone. I don't know why it's not just highlighting. Don't you love these things? Here we go. Anyway. I don't say he's a great man. Willy Loman never made a lot of money. His name was never in the paper. He's not the finest character that ever lived, but he's a human being, and a terrible thing is happening to him. So attention must be paid. He's not to be allowed to fall in his grave like an old dog. Attention must finally be paid to such a person. So the question then becomes, what is this terrible thing that's happening to him? What is his fatal flaw that is leading to this downfall? And I would argue, and a lot of critics argue, that it is his misinterpretation or over-reliance or misunderstanding, whatever word you want to use, of the American dream. He is very much caught up in the desire to be liked and to get ahead and to sell. He has to. The only thing you've got in this world is what you can sell, and so that's his mindset, is that he has to make money, he has to get ahead. And yet I would argue that he is very much like Biff, his son, in that he is not really suited for that lifestyle. He's more suited for the outdoors. He wants to plant the garden, he wants to work with his hands. And yet, because he believes in the rat race, he believes that he has to make this money and provide for his family and get caught up in that lifestyle, which is a pretty typical American lifestyle. Don't get me wrong, most of us are in that lifestyle to some extent anyway. But since he's not suited for it, it really is destructive to him, and it really leads to his downfall. Think about the symbolism of where he lives, and it used to be out in the open, and now he says, you can't even. The sun doesn't get into his backyard for his garden to grow. He's being encroached upon by all the apartment buildings and the growth of the suburbs and the area around him. So that's very symbolic. It's fencing him in. It's closing him in, just like his mind is being closed in by his thoughts and his regrets and his demons, if you will. When you watch, but when you watch the Dustin Hoffman version of John Malkovich that I recommend in the 80s, you see very clearly in the flashbacks to when the boys were young, you see the wide open spaces, and then in the present day, you see how all the buildings and all were around him, and he can't plant the garden. The garden, of course, is very symbolic, because a garden is growth and hope and a new day. You plant a garden not for today, you plant it for the future. And yet near the end of the play, he says, I don't have a seed in the ground. I don't, my garden is not growing. I can't, I no longer have this hope. I no longer have this dream of a fertile future, this dream of a better life in the future, which again is what a garden represents. So anyway, obviously that's very important. I noticed this quote right here. There's several quotes in the play I want you to notice as you read, where Miller gives a definition of a man. In this case, a man is not a bird to come and go with the springtime. There's that wonderful quote that I saw earlier up here, I think. You can't eat the orange and throw the peel away. A man is not a piece of fruit. Sometimes it's better for a man to just walk away. That's what his neighbor Charlie says. And then Willie says, but what if you can't walk away? I guess that's when it's tough. So I don't say he's a great man. Look at all those. There's just four that I saw right off the bat of what is a man. What does it take to be a man? And again, in America, in the rat race of our capitalist society, what it takes to be a man is you've got to make that money. You want to provide for your family, but you want to get ahead in your profession, and you want to capture that American dream, to build this home and this future for your children. Of course, the problem is, in Willie's case, and in most of our cases, his home is mortgaged. His home really isn't his. It belongs to the bank. Ironically, of course, it becomes his after he dies. We learn at the end of the play. Spoiler alert. But if you haven't read it yet, but it's that's Miller's point. I think that the American dream is mortgaged and borrowed and not suited for many people. We our ancestors were hunters and gatherers. We're made for the outdoors and for adventure, and yet Willie has tamped that part of himself down in order again to get caught up in the American dream. Of course, also central to the play is his relationship with Beth, which I mentioned earlier. A big part of the American dream is passing it on to your children, hoping your children have a better life than you did, and that's what he hopes. And again, that goes back to the infertile garden at the end of the play. He doesn't have a seed in the ground, he says, because his children aren't succeeding. Biff is not going to be better than his father. Biff says, again, there are all these great quotes here. I'm a dime a dozen, and so are you. I'm not a dime a dozen. I'm Willy Loman. You're a Biff. That's what Willie says in response to that. Biff says, I'm just a regular old guy, and Willie says, no, we're special. We're Americans. We are important. But Biff isn't buying it. Happy, his son Happy, is buying into the American dream. He says somewhere, I think I saw the quote earlier, that he is going to participate in the American dream and try to get ahead in business. But Happy is, he's not a very hard worker. He's certainly not a very morally upright person, and the implication is that he's probably not going to succeed in this pursuit. Here we go, right here. All right, well, we're going to show you out, and everybody else at Willy Loman did not die in vain. He had a good dream. It's the only dream you can have to come out number one man. But again, throughout the play, Happy is portrayed as a philanderer and kind of a playboy and not really a serious, hard-working person. So I think we're supposed to read this idea here with skepticism, to say the least. Anyway, and of course, his relationship with his brother Ben here. Here we go. When I was 17, I walked into the jungle. When I was 21, I walked out. Oh my God, I was rich. I mean, that is the American dream in a nutshell, right? To walk into the jungle, to walk into an opportunity, and to come out rich, to come out number one man, as Happy says right below that. And so, Willie's always measured himself against his brother and found himself wanting. Although we don't know much about his brother, but anyway, that's an interesting relationship there, as is the relationship with him and his sons. Of course, again, Linda, his wife, his long-suffering wife, seems to understand him more than anyone else. Fascinating, wonderful play. If you're younger, if you're in high school, or just out of high school, you may not totally understand Willie. But as you get older, and if any of you are older, I think you'll know what I mean. You begin to understand more this idea of disappointments and regrets And you look around at your life, and you think, is this it? Is this what I worked for? Is this all the dream amounts to? I wanted to be this great man, and yet here I am, teaching English at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. It's a good life, but let's face it, I'm never going to set the world on fire like I might have wanted to do when I was 18 years old. So it's one of those things that makes more sense the older you get. Anyway, enough about me. Hope you enjoy the play. If you have questions, let me know. Hope this helped you understand it better. And it's a great work. I know you'll enjoy it. Thank you, and thank you for your attention. I will talk to you later.